The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Geek Nation Tours, and by the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everyone for your support. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 218, TMTerrain, with Neil Shook, Mike Hobbs, Mike Whittaker, and Dave Luff, and David Marshall from TMTerrain. Welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. My name is Neil Shook, and once again I am joined by the Welsh wizard himself. It is Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, sir.
Hello, Neil, and hello to the Meeps of Meepsville.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay. And you okay?
Me? Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm not bad, you know. And we are graced with the presence. All hail the great Guru Luff.
All hail him.
Hello, chaps.
The Luffmeister, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm alright. Not bad. It's not bad at all.
Still awake, which is always a bonus. Excellent stuff.
Yeah, only just.
Well, welcome both to the show, and welcome one and all. And we start the show with an email we received from a listener. Well, if you remember, last week, I think we were complaining a little bit about the fact that it was hot.
It was a bit. It's freezing cold today.
Yes, and then we received an email from Ty Gock. Hello, Ty, and he's based in Penrith, but it's not that Penrith.
Oh, Scotland, the other one.
No, it's the other one that's in like New South Wales, where he was just explaining the fact that while we were melting in 34 degree heat, he was saying, well, 27 degrees is a nice, cool summer day in Australia, and basically we Brits should just kind of, get a grip.
Right, Ty, turn your central heating off, close all your doors, and see how many gripes you got. By the way, thanks for your email.
Having said that, Ty, he did send us an email and actually just was asking about would we consider doing an episode on 172nd, 176 plastics, which is a most excellent idea.
It is a fantastic idea.
It is, and that is definitely something we will consider. And he said he sent us some pictures of some wonderfully painted miniatures he'd been working on. Oh, Airfix powers.
Mm.
I was looking at those thinking. I remember my 54mm Airfix powers. They were a brilliant set of figures. I thought they were really cool. And he's got a French. Beautifully painted French line, and we should. He's saying, can we please talk about plastic 176 scale, 172nd, 176th, because it's a huge part of the hobby, which an awful lot of people seem to ignore. The question is why. I think we may be. I think it may be worth me getting in touch with one of my old wargaming buddies. Yes. Or one of our old wargaming buddies, should I say, Mr. Luff?
Sprang to mind straight away as soon as I heard 172.
Yes, indeed. So, Ty, leave it with us. We shall speak to a guy that does an awful lot of 172nd stuff and actually does it does all his ancients in 172nd. So, yes, excellent idea. Leave it with us. It will be forthcoming in a future show.
So, have you two guys ever done the Airfix drinking game?
You what?
The Airfix drinking game. What you do is you have to adopt the pose of a figure from an Airfix range, and the other people have to guess it. And if they don't guess it correctly, they have to take a shot. It's a great game.
Why did we not play this at Lardy Day?
You can do the British power with grenade. Arm out straight,
Yes, the famous Desert Rats 8th Army officer.
Pointing, looking to watch. Yeah. All this sort of stuff. It's a great game. Doesn't last very long, but it's a great game whilst it's going.
What's the phrase? Don't try that at home. Excellent stuff. Well, and on that note, I think it's time that we move on, and we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll catch up with what we've been up to.
The eagles have gone. Britain lies defenseless in a cruel world. Since the birth of our Lord, it has been 456 years. What sins have we committed to bring this punishment to Britain? I speak, of course, of the Saxons. They came as allies, but now they seek conquest. The lands of the Britons lie ravaged before them. Blood runs red in our island. We need a leader to stand against them. We need a man to bring together the Britons in common cause. We seek a Dux Britanniarum.
Right, that's enough of that. Dux Britanniarum from Two Fat Lardies. They really are very good.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all.
And we're back. And so it's time to catch up with what we've been up to. And since he's not been on, and not really talked about it for a while, Mr. Luff, what have you been doing?
Oh, you put me on the spot, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on, Dave.
What we've been doing? Well, fresh after Lardy Day, I had a recovery from the painting marathon that we'd done and making scenery that Neil forced me to do, and I managed to get the lounge back, or should I say, the bunker, as was a converted lounge, into the bunker. And it was tidy enough for us to play some games, wasn't it, Neil, the other Thursday?
Oh, I was shocked. We arrived, it was all set up and ready, and I'm thinking, what is this? How come we're not spending the first half an hour talking about what game we're going to try and play?
Yeah, well, at some point in time, someone has to make a decision out of the four of us, and I thought I had to grasp the nettle by the horns or whatever.
That's not like you at all, Mr. Earth.
Yeah,
it's normally, I don't know, what does everybody else want to play?
Yeah, well, I thought, screw that. I thought democracy by committee is no democracy at all, so dictatorship, it seems to be the fashionable thing at the moment. So, yeah. So we played Dungeon Saga, didn't we?
Indeed we did. And we played it more than once.
Yeah, it's a rubbish game, isn't it? Never going to play it again. Just get on eBay now and just quickly buy the expansions. Yeah, crikey. Yeah, very good game. Very good game.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, we just played the first intro quest, which is something like From the West, I think it's called. Yeah. But we played it 3 times, didn't we, Neil?
We did. We played it with a couple of characters that we rolled ourselves because Dave's already got because Dave's bought the adventure companion.
Yeah, So I said to them, if they want to roll characters, they can roll characters. So Dave Hickman, hello Dave, was like well up for it. And Neil just sat on the corner being a miserable brummy harumphing, going, "This is going to take us ages." And Dave was going, "No, got to get into it. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly. I want to roll a character. It's going to take us ages." And anyway, we quite enjoyed it. We actually learned how to do it. And Neil eventually begrudgingly got involved. And I think he slightly enjoyed it when he realised he could roll a paladin dwarf. So we played with just the rolled characters that the guys had rolled, and then we decided we're going to play with the bog standard flavoured characters that come with the game.
Yeah.
Then we switched over, didn't we? Then as well, the dungeon masters, didn't we? Or the overlords, what you want to call them?
Yeah. So we played. We played playing the overlord. We played with the characters that we'd rolled, and it's safe to say that we made fairly heavy weather of it. But having said that, it made for a brilliant game because it was one of those things that with the very last action on the very last turn, I managed to finally run down the corridor and break through the door. It was a really good game. It was really good, but it was one of those things we suddenly kind of realised, hang on a second, we're kind of losing track of what we should be trying to achieve here.
The truth is, though, Hobbsy, I wasn't being as nasty as I could have been to them, seeing it was our first game. I thought I was going to be a bit kinder.
Anyway.
But the first scenario is very easy and takes about 20 minutes.
It wasn't when Neil was playing.
No, it was really good fun. That was really good fun. And then we okay, let's switch it around. And I said, okay, if we're switching it around, okay, I'll be the overlord and just take the bog standard characters. So Hickey took the dwarf, and Luffy, because he's a big lump, took the barbarian.
Smash.
Yeah.
And you finished the dungeon in what, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Because the difference with these two ready rolled characters as opposed to the two that we got, because especially Dave, what Mr. Luff didn't mention was the fact that Mr. Hitman's special role character was a halfling wizard.
Yeah.
Which was
probably not the scenario for that character.
Which was just a little squishy.
He had a paladin dwarf.
So we did that, and then
I'd be interested to see the character figure you're going to get for that.
What for the dwarf paladin?
Yeah, I've already got one, mate.
I've got it. I've got it in my hand. My hand. It's
painted.
No, not yet.
God, be silly.
Yeah, I only got it yesterday.
Oh, really? Oh, new purchase.
Indeed. Yes, Mr. Hitman bought two halfling. This is from Midlum Miniatures. Midlum Miniatures. Hickey was complaining about the lack of halfling wizards you could find. And I was like,
can't understand that. I mean, cool.
Yeah,
it'd be high demand, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But Midlum Miniatures do some really nice. Well, there are a lot of nice miniatures, but they got a couple of fantastic halfling wizards. So he bought a couple of those, and at the same time, I picked up a dwarf in full plate. However, it has to be said, having got it, it does seem to be a little on the short side compared to a normal dwarf. It actually looks more like a halfling in plate as opposed to a dwarf in plate.
Well, he's a short dwarf.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe yes. So, but anyway,
clues in the name. It's a dwarf.
It's a dwarf. But as I say, I do have a miniature, and he will be painted in the very near future. Ooh. So we do have miniatures already. Okay, so
it's a paladin dwarf. So it's plated silver. Give it a black wash. Done.
I'm going to say, yeah. In the very near future is a bit of a subjective thing, though, when it comes to Neil Hobbsy.
Yeah. You probably spent longer doing the base.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and then we even had time for Hickey to take on the role of the Overlord, and me and Dave to have a go with the pre-generated characters.
So you haven't played the second scenario yet?
Not yet.
Not in from the east or whatever it is. Yeah. That's the other intro one now.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say is play the first two back-to-back using the pre-built characters they suggest. It teaches you the rules nicely.
Yes, so the last time we played the first one, I just went, tell you what, let's just charge down the corridor and break the door down.
I didn't actually agree with this scenario and this sort of strategy. But Neil, being Neil, he only has one strategy in his book, as we know. Charge.
Yep.
So I went, okay, we'll charge then.
And Dave had the audacity, and I mean, he just couldn't keep up, and he died. I mean, it's like, what can you do? It's like, big hogging barbarian, went and died on me.
I did charge, but Neil was just left behind and just left me to it really, and I was just like all on me Jack Jones.
Excuse me, we were fighting side by side. It was just the fact that they were all hitting you.
It side by side, but about 2 steps further back. Hobbsy really is what it was.
Yeah.
Well, I've only got little legs.
And the trouble is the barbarian hits very hard, but he hasn't got a lot of armor.
No.
One armor better than a wizard.
Yes, we played and enjoyed the Dungeon Saga.
Yeah, it's very good. Much more Dungeon Saga will be had.
Cool.
So on the back of that, Mr. Luff, did you buy the expansions like we told you to?
No, I've not bought them yet. There's plenty in print everywhere at the moment, so I did have a good check. Yes. Firestorm Games have got them as well.
They do, and we'll post out immediately.
Immediately. Yeah.
Quick on their postage.
Yes. I had a check on Firestorm Games, and there was one other company I had a look at as well.
Don't go anywhere else, mate. Just go to Firestorm Games.
Support your local game shop.
Support my local game shop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you didn't buy anything this week? Don't be silly.
No, don't be silly.
Right. Okay. Actually, I didn't buy anything this week.
You did. You bought your dwarf.
Apart from a dwarf.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Apart from a dwarf. Yeah, I was forgetting about the dwarf.
Which is too short.
Well, it's not so much too short as it's not wide enough. But
Maybe
there we
he's
go.
been on a diet.
Yeah.
You're very sizist and racist, you know.
Sorry, you're speaking words I do not recognise. Anyway, yes, I bought a dwarf, but other than that, no. But I had to buy a set of card sleeves. So yeah, really boring stuff this week. So yeah, card sleeves. Nothing else this week, which actually makes a change. It's the first time for a few weeks I haven't actually gone out and bought something.
Card sleeves. That's got to be on my list actually for Dungeon Saga, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
I can probably send you some. I think I bought a box of 1,000.
I've got some kicking around somewhere. When Wayland, no, was it Wayland?
No, it's Mayfair.
Mayfair, that was it. When Mayfair in America couldn't send me the right ones that I'd ordered, and they kept going, "Oh yeah, sorry, we've sent you the wrong ones. We'll send you another lot out." "Oh no, sorry, we've sent you the wrong ones. We'll send you another lot out." 4 attempts before they got my order right. What shall I do with all these? Just keep them, mate. Just keep them. All right, thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure you got them around somewhere. You got loads of them. You got loads of them. You'll be fine.
Well, I did have loads of them, but I've been using them up steadily over the years.
I'm saving myself for the rush at the end of the week when we get things like there's 2 or 3 Kickstarters starting. It's like Fable, because as this has just been published, Fabled Realms have just been released on Kickstarter.
Dilution theory at its worst.
Well, I saw another one that was launching at the end of the week as well. Oh, there's a sci-fi Kickstarter, a sci-fi terrain Kickstarter from the Small Terrain Studio, I think they're called. They're launching a sci-fi one which looked quite interesting. Just sci-fi scatter terrain. Thought, ooh, that looks interesting. Which is kind of quite current for what's going on with a certain game at the moment. But other than that, didn't quite manage to. Modelling, gaming wise, I didn't quite manage to get any other games in. However, I did manage to put together the rest of 2 Runewars armies. So I now have 200 points worth of Undead and 200 points worth of Dakewood Lords ready to paint.
Oh, I was going to say.
So they are fast approaching the table. Just depends if people will let me get away with painting them, as opposed to everybody talking about painting my ruddy Normans.
You paint what you want to paint, mate. As long as you paint something.
And your nails don't count.
Oh, that was the other thing I did. I glued together some. I glued together some 4 grand MDF terrain. because I had a bit of time on Sunday, so I was gluing together some MDF terrain for Test of Honor and buying more really useful boxes. Because obviously we're wargamers, so we keep really useful boxes in business.
We do.
That was me, Mr. Hobbs. Up to you.
I haven't been doing much. I haven't had a game this week. I was due to meet up with Stu from Great Escape Games yesterday, but unfortunately that had to be delayed. So I haven't played anything. Now, are you two sitting down?
Yeah.
Why?
Good. I haven't bought anything this week.
I'm sorry?
You haven't bought anything or nothing's been delivered?
Both.
Who are you and what have you done with the Welsh Wizard?
Yeah, I've bought...
Luffy! Yeah, how's your hypnotic conditioning finally kicked in?
That's re-education.
Yeah, I bought nothing. I've been doing some painting. I've been painting some 40k stuff. I cleared off my to-do pile for 40k, which has been on the shelf for 5 years.
Oh, yes, I saw a picture of this. Yeah, you've been painting some, was it Deathwing Terminators?
I've done some assault troops which were covered in dust, and Raven Wing bike or assault bike, and I just decided to dig out because I forgot I bought Dark Vengeance, which is the 7th edition box set when it came out, because there had Dark Angels in it. And I got that out of the attic, and I've started putting those figures together, which includes Terminators. So I've been trying to remember how to paint Terminators. So the Deathwing Terminators. So I painted one, and I got my recipe all sorted out. So
good.
That's done. And I've done my Runewars stuff.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, before we move on from your Terminators, Mr. Hobbs, I have a bone to pick with you.
What?
Over a particular tweet that came out today. As we're recording this, there you were, displaying your Deathwing Terminator.
Very nice.
And there was I, and the very nice Deathwing Terminator, and there was I feeling all inspired, going, oh, because to all my Terminators, the ones I painted are Deathwing Terminators. I don't know, I just like the Dark Angels so much more than Blood Angels.
Well, that's
so, yes, so when Deathwing came out for Space Hulk, I decided at that point that all my Terminators were going to be Deathwing Terminators, and indeed I even collected that was my army. I had a Deathwing Terminator army, even, which actually that was one of the problems with 4th edition, because they were crap. I got my arse handed to me completely by, I think it was Tau, and it's like, hang on, these are meant to be the Emperor's finest troops, or maybe it's just me. Anyway, but. There you were, and I was feeling all inspired. And what was the tweet that you sent back?
I can't remember. It was a long time ago, Neil.
It was a long time ago. What was it? Something like, "Be careful, plastic gets brittle when left in the box for 28 years."
Oh, that was it. Yeah. Well, it does. It was a health and safety warning.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was a dagger through the chest. That was.
You can't rush these things, Mike.
No, but it's a health and safety thing. I mean, you could take it out. That plastic could shear Dave. You go right in his eye, and nobody wants that.
So you painted your Deathwing Terminator.
I've done my test one, yeah.
And found your recipe.
I found my recipe.
So you were about to say Runewars.
Yeah, I've done. I've also been working on my Runewars first armies from the first box. So I've done the 2 heroes this week. So they're done. All I've got left from the first box is the Rune Golem and the big wormy thing, which the name I can't remember. The Carrion Lance. Yes, I've got those 2 to do, and then I might actually tomorrow put together the second box. Those done, and I might just then paint up the golems and the 2 Carrion Lances together. But yeah, they're done. Nice little figures.
They are nice, aren't they? And I must admit. Have you put the heroes together yet? The hero boxes.
No, yeah.
Oh, they are cool, especially the standard bearers and musicians for both factions are really cool.
Oh, I might do those as well, and I might just put the whole lot together, and then I can start painting those through. But yeah, so all is going well, and I got a game tomorrow with Matt and Ralph are coming to the Wargaming capital of Wales.
Oh, right, okay.
And we're playing Conan.
So what are you playing?
Conan.
Oh, Conan. Oh, cool. Excellent.
Good game of Conan. With all painted figures. Oh.
Whoa. Very nice. Very nice. Yes, and of course, on Rune Wars, it would be rude not to mention the fact that the Fantasy Flight have just announced the fourth faction for Rune Wars.
Yeah. I'll be getting that one.
Which is, the Utherculan, which is basically chaos, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one that's in the Blood Law. Blood Law? Battle Law. That's the game. That's in the Battle Law box set. So, yeah, I'll be getting that one. I'm not going to bother getting the elves. They look a bit funny.
Well, they're elves.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's me. No real gaming.
Cool.
But, lots of painting. Got my mojo back.
Excellent stuff. Good to hear. But yes, hopefully you'll be back next week and service will be resumed as you'll have bought something again.
Yeah.
You never know.
I might get a couple more of the 40k indexes.
Oh, moving quickly on. Right, okay. So on that note, I think it's about time, and we'll take a quick break. And it suddenly strikes me that we actually failed to introduce at the start of the show who our main guest was. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will be chatting with Dave Marshall of TMTerrain. Most people will actually probably be aware of some terrain that Dave has done over the years, and especially once we start chatting about stuff, things will immediately spring to mind that he's done. But more recently, the thing he has become known for was working with the Perry brothers and producing the Agincourt diorama that is in the Royal Armouries. That is the guy we'll be chatting to, and we'll be talking to him all about custom making terrain and asking him loads of questions about how he does stuff. So that's what's coming up next after this next break.
Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. If things weren't confusing enough having two mics on the show, this week we now have not one but two Daves on the show. We'd like to welcome to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast Mr. David Marshall from TMTerrain. Hello, sir.
Good evening.
How you doing?
How are we all? Very well, thank you. Yes, very well.
Good. Now, we've been meaning to get Dave on the show but I think basically every time we've been bumping into you at a games show for, I don't know, about the last 3 or 4 years, isn't it? At least.
It must be, yes.
Yeah, and we finally found a date in the diary. Well, it was more of a case of, it wasn't Dave's fault, it was all our fault. But we finally got round and got Dave on the show to talk all about terrain, because we were meaning to do a terrain show for ages, and there's the famous terrain show which we got recorded and never got published. Anyway, at least this time now, we've got somebody on the show who knows what he's talking about.
Hope so. We'll soon find out, eh?
Indeed. So we have Dave and Mike and Mike. Not that that's going to get confusing in the slightest. Right. So, and Dave, not only is Dave a new guest, he's also a listener to the podcast. So, unfortunately, he knows what's coming next. So, welcome to the show, David. It's great to have you on. Although this is, of course, not the first time you have heard David on the show, because for those of you
well, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. For those of you who remember back to, crikey, when was it? Was it last year that we did the Agincourt show?
Oh, we talk about Agincourt.
Agincourt, was that last year?
Was
that year before?
It had gone into Armouries Easter last year, so
yes, it
was
about
a year ago.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously we recorded the Q&A session that David did with Michael and Alan Perry. So that was David on the show back then. But obviously that was just a live recording, and we didn't get to have him sat down with us and being able to answer questions. So here we are. So first off, David, as with all our guests, a first-time one, we'd like to ask you how on earth you started wargaming.
It was back in the day with Airfix, really. A usual story. I was about 6 or 7, I suppose, and which is over 40 years ago now. So, and I still remember going down to a shop in Billericay with my dad, and I bought American Civil War artillery and World War I German infantry. They were my first purchases.
Right.
American Civil War keeps popping up all through my wargaming life, I think. So, but it was just coincidence then. I think I just like the idea of the artillery and the machine guns and the pointy hats on the German infantry, that sort of thing. You know, when you're 6, that sort of thing is important.
Oh, indeed.
But then I think the key moment was probably when I was 11, 12, and my aunt bought me one of those Airfix guides. You know, they were the A5 hardback things.
Oh,
they did loads, didn't they, on all sorts of different aspects of the hobby.
Well, the Airfix magazine guides.
Is that what they were?
I
Airfix
think
magazine
so, yeah.
guides.
There were a whole bunch, everything from sort of Napoleonics, American Civil War, tanks,
That's
you
right.
name it.
And they were hardback, weren't they? Quite thin, yeah. And I got the Bruce Quarry Napoleonic one.
Oh, that was a controversial thing in its time.
Was it? What was up with it? Or
He was one of the first people who had this idea that just because you were Austrian didn't mean you have the same stats as you were Prussian.
Oh, I see. Right.
And
okay,
it got a bit controversial in the hobby, I seem to recall.
Did it? I remember it as just because growing up with the Airfix stuff. That range was all very Waterloo-y, wasn't it? I mean, there was.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything not that battle really. So suddenly you open this book up, and there were Austrians and Russians and sort of heavy infantry and light infantry and and it was just it was just amazing. And they also had the pictures of all the metal figures, which I'd never seen before. And importantly, in the back of the book they had a list of manufacturers, and I remember I wrote to Hinchliffe Models from there, Minifigs, and for some reason Hinton Hunt. Those were 3 of the. I don't know if there were more listed, but those were the 3 I chose.
Mm-hmm.
Hinchliffe came back with their little A5 book, their list of everything. That was when a 25mm figure was 10p.
Which kind of puts an age on it, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it, really? Minifigs wrote back and said, you've got to send money for a catalogue. And Hinton Hunt, I never heard from. So I went with Hinchliffe.
It's strange, that.
And I pored over that book as you do, for just ages. And a couple of years ago I found it, and it was really dog-eared. I mean, and there were notes in the mark, all sorts of things. And I remember, again, I bought 12 Scots Greys, 24 Dragoon Guards, and 18 Household Cavalry. I remember that. 54 Cavalry, they were my first metal order. And I've never looked back, really.
So you're a bit of a cavalry fan, then?
Well, I was, but of course, bear in mind, I'd just bought Airfix before that. So you could get British infantry, and you could convert those to riflemen. And, I mean, then, you weren't bothered if the helmets weren't, if the uniforms weren't quite right, it was near enough. And
because you had Highlanders.
We had, oh yes, I'd forgotten those Highlanders. And then, the old guard you could convert and Fusiliers, stuff like that. But the cavalry, actually think about it, I have always got a soft spot for cavalry. I do like, I've got Norman Army, Huns. Yeah, the horse is a common theme.
Yeah, because Airfix, wasn't it a choice of either British Hussars or French Cuirassiers?
Yep.
That's right, yeah. And then the only way to convert them, wasn't there, because there wasn't any good glue then, you had to solder different heads. So I think I was trying to think how many times did I burn my fingers and melt heads, and I was useless at that. So it was great when I could buy them straight off the peg, really. It wasn't bothered that they were 25mm, Hinchliffe 25 and their Airfix 20mm. Not an issue. We just played and played and played. And and then went to college. I've never had a break. I've always gamed, I've always painted. I went to college, and within a couple of weeks I had my painting table set up. I was painting, found the local club in Nottingham. Just never not had wargaming in my life. I met my wife in my second year at college. It was one of the guys I was in the house with. It was his 21st birthday. She was friends with him. Met on the Saturday, got on okay. Didn't see her on the Sunday because I went wargaming. there was no way I wasn't going to go gaming, and that's been my whole life now. Francis is very used to me putting wargaming first. So, and when the kids arrived, still gamed, mainly historical. Because I was starting way before Games Workshop. I mean, I was doing A-levels, and we went down to London, and I remember going to the Dalling Road shop, the first Games Workshop shop. Do you remember that?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. And then I went to college in Nottingham, and they opened their second shop there, and I got a weekend job there, and that was when Citadel. I think they just sorted out the Citadel models. Yeah, they'd just bought the Citadel range of figures.
Yeah,
and you could, all the figures were in little drawers at the back behind the cabinet, behind the counter. So you had to ask for them, and I don't know if they'd started making their own stuff. Maybe the first edition of Warhammer was about to come out. So I was 18, and Games Workshop sort of hit the headlines then. So
so was that when he was owned by Lancel?
Yeah. And I think they moved up to Nottingham, didn't they? When they bought the Citadel range, is that when they?
I believe so.
When everything moved to Nottingham. So that was 80, 85, 84. So and the brief moment I've had with Games Workshop was when my lads were, the right sort of age, and we got into a bit of 40k and fantasy, but that only lasted a few years. But now I've always gamed mainly historically. It's been the last few years I've got into money pits like X-Wing and Imperial Assault and Malifaux and all sorts of stuff like that. But I'll never lose my historical love, really. And that's it, really. And turning it into a business hasn't changed my hobby at all. I'm still dead enthusiastic about it all. So yeah, that's it, really. I think.
So, seeing you bought 54 25mm Hinchcliffe Cavalry back in the day,
did
you paint them all?
I did eventually.
Hey.
I can't
say
when.
eventually.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And I remember I painted the Household Cavalry blues. Is they blues and royal? Is that what they call them? Anyway, so the blue jackets, the dragoons into dragoon guards, and the Scots Greys. Yeah, I remember the grey. Yeah. No, I did paint them, which isn't too bad. But I don't know how long it took me. And I was painting airfix stuff then. I remember converting some British infantry into riflemen, but only a few really. I had hundreds and hundreds of them. So yeah, the usual story really. Good old days.
Cool. So, when did Scratch Building Terrain come along?
Pretty early, really. I think I was first aware of it really when I went to my first wargaming show in Hull, because that's where I grew up, and I was probably
Really?
Yeah. Well,
how did you escape not buying lambing miniatures then?
I didn't like them.
Fair enough.
I think they were quite minifiggy, really, weren't they?
Yeah, they were very low, because I'm from Ferriby, so they're very very local to us.
Well, I grew up in South Cave.
It's a small world.
Yeah. There was I don't know, you may have gone to the show, but there was a show at the Station Hotel, so by the railway station in Hull.
Don't remember that.
It was, and there was, I remember two things. There was a chariot race, and there was this 54mm cowboy game that's been around for yonks, hasn't it? I mean, on and off.
Yeah.
And I remember, though, it was a Mexican town, all scratch built. It was just blew me away, that did. And so that was the first building I made. I made a 28mm little saloon. It was, I don't know, 8 inches by 6 inches, just rendered on the outside. And I finished it. I was 12, 13, which wasn't a bad result really, and it looked okay.
So what did you make it out of?
It would have been card probably then, thick card,
mm-hmm.
and then rendered with polyfiller and painted and things like that. And then I'd make sunken lanes, hills, but just the odd thing here and there really. And then I think when miniature war games came out, and that was when I first started college. Those photos in there, that was Peter Gilder's stuff, was really inspirational to me. And Ian Weekly, he did his articles and things like that. So it sort of just seeped into me, really. And I just continued to make the odd thing here and there. And then I think I'd moved to Derby, and we started, the club there liked to do demo games and participation games. And I started to get involved in those, and I'd make a bit of terrain there. And I think the first big table I did was an Indian Mutiny game. I did city walls, all the houses inside, and we set up we wrote a simple set of rules, and it went down really well. And I really just enjoyed it. And then I did a Wild West town, and it just sort of naturally grew. And then I guess because I enjoyed it, I just kept doing it, and I got better at it. And people liked what I did. Got a couple of things in the magazines and stuff like that, and just sort of encouraged me, really. Just went from there. I think if you enjoy it, you do it, don't you? And you're going to get better at it. If it's like pulling teeth, then you're just not going to persevere.
Yeah.
So,
right. So when you first started, there wasn't too much dry brushing roads then to kind of put you off terrain making.
Is that what you've been doing recently, Neil? A lot of dry brushing roads?
No. Ask Mr. Love about dry brushing roads.
I like dry brushing because it's the last bit and it looks good.
You like dry brushing for 2 months, solid.
It wasn't that long.
Use a bigger brush, Dave.
Yeah, just, split it up. Do some dry brushing woods or dry brush, something else.
No, it was roads. Neil was cracking the whip pretty hard.
2 months of dry brushing.
It wasn't that late. He exaggerates, honest.
2 hours, I know.
He was a lightweight, honestly. I think I only destroyed 2 brushes, wasn't it?
Now, Dave, do you use good brushes or do you use rubbish brushes and just get through them quickly?
Yeah, I use rubbish brushes.
Yeah.
Not for my figure paint, I use decent stuff, but for there's no point. It just destroys it, doesn't it?
That's the
cheapest paintbrush B&Q will sell you.
Yeah, I agree. But
there's no such thing as a cheap paintbrush there.
No, because I've tried expensive ones and they do hang around a bit longer, but it isn't worth it.
I think obviously this is where all of a sudden we go on to terrain, and it's such a huge topic. I mean, okay, before we
every time, every podcast, there's something about terrain. So it's a big part of the hobby.
And this is it. And let's face it, all 3 of us have been except for Hobbsy, who left all his terrain making to Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
With his
smart man.
Ham and Jam.
Ham and Jam, that's it. Yeah, with Ham and Jam and his rather nice looking clad buildings. But certainly, Mr. Whittaker and myself, and Mr. Love have just finished our latest terrain projects for last weekend.
Yes, they all went very well, I hear.
Oh, it was all right, wasn't it? I mean,
it were really grand. It were.
Yeah. Sounded a good. Was it a weekend or just a day?
It was a day that became a weekend.
Okay.
Some people, it was a long weekend. There
was boozing on the Friday night, and nattering on the Sunday morning, and gaming on the Saturday, and curry on the Saturday.
I was going to say curry. Yeah.
Oh yes. Yes, some very very nice games there.
That Stalingrad game looked awesome. Was it Adi who did that?
Adi did some of the figures. The whole terrain was done by Alan Sherwood.
Right.
Who I think he said it was something like 12 weeks.
Right.
And he's not going to take it anywhere.
Allegedly. I think I think we need to prevail otherwise, because that was particularly stunning.
I mean, he's not taking it anywhere, as in he's not taking it to any show. He's not going to show it off anywhere.
No. It's just
he's going to pack it back. He's going to pack it back away in his workshop.
Right.
Because he's played.
How big was it?
6x4.
Yeah, right. 6x4. He's going to make it.
6x4x2.
Yeah.
It's quite tall. Yeah.
That was kind of the sort of key takeaways. It was 3D terrain, very definitely.
I noticed there was a chimney, a big industrial chimney.
Hmm.
Did Did he scratch build that? Do you know, or was that?
Yes, I can.
did.
Having stood right next to it and peered down it, that was scratch built.
I believe. I mean, there were a few MDF. I think there's a few MDF shells which he got a mate to kind of make the shells. Make the building shells. Right. And I think some of the. Now I'm open to correction, but I think some of the train chassis were not scratch built. Certainly all the
from what Aid said, for a lot of the trains, he basically went trawling on eBay for odds and sods, removed the upper bits, rebuilt the upper bits, and used the chassis.
Yeah.
Right. Were the railway stuff O gauge?
I didn't look.
I have every intention. I mean, Alan is lovely bloke, but quite shy about talking about his stuff sometimes. But I am hoping to prevail to get him on the show and chat about it, because it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Stunning beyond belief, that board.
Yeah. But
I mean, there were some really, really nice boards there that weekend, but that just knocked a lot of them into a cock's hat.
No, I mean, I've just seen the photographs that you posted, Neil, and they,
I didn't grab masses of stuff in shot, but I mean, there's quite a few. There were several floating around the internet of various different games. I mean, Jim Ibbetson's ACW game.
That looked nich, yeah. Did he have a farm in the middle, or a manor house in in the middle of the board?
People keep calling it the Amityville house. Is that from crikey, Foxtrot? Is that from Foxtrot? Sorry, I think it is.
Yeah, man never builds a terrain board though.
But unfortunately, I didn't manage to get. I was too busy umpiring, so I didn't manage to get any pictures of these figures. But but yeah, crikey, that bloke can paint.
No.
I mean, I was joking with him at parties and about the fact he was complaining that he couldn't get the stripes right on his Zouave infantry. I said, I'm never doing them again. He says,
it must have been good to attract you to an American Civil War game, though, Neil, because that's not your favourite thing, is it? Not your favourite period.
It has to be said, of all the periods in all the world, ACW is not one I would normally choose to game. But as I say, not my first choice in periods. Although having said that, we may well be moving to the Americas for our next project, won't we, Mr. Luff?
Oh yeah.
If you can remember.
Well, French-Indian War, aren't we? Possibly.
Yeah, French-Indian War, and we may well have a go. I mean, obviously, if...
Scale?
15 mil.
15 mil.
Shot practice, 15 mil, got to be done.
See, now, I go 40 mil. American Civil War 40 mil I'm just painting at the minute. Glorious scale, that is.
So what figures are you using? Are you using Sash and Sabre?
A bit of Sash and Sabre, but also... I can never remember. Is it Trident?
Trident Designs, yes.
Yeah, you can get them... It's weird. They're designed in the UK, and then they're produced in the US and distributed in the US by Miniature Soldier Company or something like that.
Yes.
So really, really weird. So the guy in the UK won't sell them in the UK. So you've got to get them from the US.
Because he used to sell them. Because Trident, he used to sell them in the UK, didn't he? I'm sure he did when he first started.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and he did American Revolution first, didn't he? I mean, he's got...
No, he did Gladiators first, mate. He did Gladiators.
Oh, was it?
His first range he did was 40 mil Gladiators.
Oh, okay.
But yes, he did do...
I came across him first with the American Revolution.
Yes.
And he's got a ridiculously massive range of that, hasn't he, now?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you have a look at it. But, yeah, so... I've got the 40 mil of those. So, just enough to do both sides for sharps practice, so...
In 40. So what size table? So do you what? Do you play that on like an 8x6 or what?
No, the area is the same as a 28 mil figure, or just a fraction bigger, but not really. Nothing. They're just taller. They're proportionally better, I think, than a 28. So all the scales and everything are identical to 28. So nothing changes with that, and you can. At a push, you can get away with a lot of 28 mil terrain as well. You know, buildings are a bit tough because the doors just don't work. But most of it works fine. And as a scale, I just really, really like it.
As well as we talked over the years, I was really heavily into 40 mil for a long time,
Okay.
And then, because at one point I decided I was going to go do 40mm with everything. So I got all the HLBS modern stuff, and then bought a load of their Napoleonics and bought a load of Perry 40mm Napoleonics. And I was planning on doing skirmishing in 40mm. Yeah. Then decided that, maybe not. Even painting a small skirmish force of Perry 40mm, it's like, do I really want to do that? Yeah, maybe that wasn't such a good idea.
Your ceiling was at the risk of falling in.
Well, there's that as well. I did have a few.
Yes, they are heavy and all that. Yeah. But but I mean, with ACW, I've done 40mm, 28, 15. I'm doing 12mm now with Callistra. We had a go at 6. Ridiculous. How does that happen?
So is ACW your thing now then?
Yeah. It always has been, really, I think. I just, I keep going back to it. I can't. I love it. I love the photographs that you get. I love those studio photos of the guys, before they went off. There's something about it. And then all the photographs of the battlefields and then all, you can read forever about it. I've been over to the States and looked at quite a few of the battlefields, and I don't know, something appeals to me about it. I like the simple way that they're just blue and grey generally. Easy to paint.
No crossbelts.
No crossbelts. So I just like everything about it, really. Yeah, there's a lot of there's like Chamberlain on Little Round Top and all that sort of stuff. Fascinates me.
Okay, anyway, so what's the phrase? We have digressed a little bit.
We have digressed, haven't we?
Indeed. Okay, so you started making terrain and basically just carried on. So at what point did it take on a more? Well, did it become commercial? And then how on earth did you get into it being a business?
It went commercial about 14 years ago, and up till that point, another key moment as it turned out in my life. Again, it's ACW related, but when I first decided to collect 28mm ACW, I bought a few figures from various manufacturers to see which ones I liked, and I got some Dixon, and in the end I decided I didn't want to use those. So, having painted them, I put them on the Derby Big and Buy, the Derby Worlds Big and Buy. And as you do, as I do, I used to go away and then come back and see if they'd sold, see how much money I'd got to spend. And I came back to look, and as it happened, someone was asking, had picked this unit of Dixon figures up, and was asking the guy who painted these. And I just said, it was me. And, 5 minutes either way, I'd have missed him. And that started a relationship for about, 7-8 years, where I'd start to paint just for pocket money here and there, his collection of figures. And it just got me into a routine, really, of painting, of doing stuff for other people. And a small thing, but sometimes I do talk to people and say, well, how can you give stuff away? And that I got used to doing it then. And then so about 15 years ago, he asked me to make a French Indian fort, just a stockade thing, but based around a sort of a William Henry type design.
Yeah.
And I did that for him, and a board, and I delivered it to the Triples, Sheffield Triples, say probably 15 years ago, and I realised he paid me sort of an hourly rate that would just about get me by, really. And it just went down a storm. It won Best in Show. It just, people were all over it all day. And actually, I remember, it's Ian Fawcett, Spartan Games guy.
Neil.
Is it Ian? Neil.
Yes.
I remember meeting him there, and he spent ages looking at that game. It was just, he just sat there and just, it was funny. We chatted and all that sort of thing. So I drove home on that Sunday, and by the end of the week, I'd handed my notice in.
Oh, wow.
Saying I was going to make a go of this. It sort of coincided that I'd been a salesman for 15 years, and I really wasn't very good at it, but I dragged it out for that long. And it was sort of coming to a head. I was getting really fed up of it all. It was getting and this all happened. I went in on a Monday, sort of had a heart-to-heart, and by Friday I'd handed my notice in. At the same time, a friend of mine, Mark, he was finishing his job, and so he was looking for something else to do. So we came together, and that was why it's TM. His surname was Thornley, and my surname is Marshall, so TM. Right. So, yeah, I'd obviously talked to Francis about it, but we'd got £500 in the bank. I'd got a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, or 9 and 11, something like that, a mortgage, everything, and I said, right, I'm going to make a go of this. I think I can, and that was it.
I suppose that's what's called having an incentive to make something work.
Yes, but it everything sort of fell into place after that, because by the end of the week I'd handed my notice in. That my employer said, well, can you hang on until we get someone else to replace you and train them up a bit and then leave? So said, can you hang on for 3 months? And said, yeah, that'd be great. So that gave me 3 months of, we could get the website going. I could talk to Duncan McFarland at War Games Illustrated, then to get articles in the magazine and just that sort of thing. 3 months came. I mean, we went on holiday, so that was a good time to stop. So I left, had 2 weeks. I thought, right, well, when I get back, all I've got to do is make terrain. A friend of mine had given me by then a £300 figure painting contract. John, who he ran the Derby show, John Grant. So very grateful to him. And when I came back, I got a phone call saying the guy who'd taken my place didn't work out. Can you come back part-time? And that part-time lasted 18 months, I think. So, cool. And it all just worked out. So it meant that I think I worked Monday and Friday for TM, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a popper job. So it meant the financial stress wasn't on the terrain, right, and I could build it up gradually. And it just sort of went 18 months, and then again, I had no plan. I walked in one day, and I walked out, and I was done. That was it, and we were full-time TM. But but I think over that time, there were a couple of guys who were 2 Americans who placed large orders with me and large deposits that really were able to take the financial pressure off and allow me to work. And it's so that was 14 years ago, and I've never had a day off since due to no work.
Wow!
And it's been full time since that day. And I've only taken time off for holidays and things that unrelated to wargaming. And so it's, I don't know, people talk about business plans and get everything into place before you do it and stuff like that. I said, well, no, just go for it. Why not? And it worked out.
Okay, so right from the start then, what did you do? Was it always a case of you produced full boards? Did you make little bits of bespoke terrain, buildings or scattered terrain, or did you just do the whole lot? I mean, was it a case of you'll do anything, or how did you start?
It really was a do anything, but it was always bespoke stuff. I'm not organised enough or disciplined enough to make a catalogue of things. I'm no good at that. I couldn't do a Last Valley where you produce the same stuff all the time. So I was always relying on people coming to me. And I mean, some of my first jobs was some 20mm German vehicles to paint and make and paint. A bit of Stalingrad 20mm boards. I think quite early on, Ainsty Castings, they asked me to make some masters for some of their ranges. But I think they're still in production, some of those actually. But anyway,
what, some of the terrain? Yes,
they did the Adobe set. I think on Ainsty Castings and were my stuff all those years ago.
Oh wow!
And that was I would do anything. I thought I would have to get into model railways, to supplement the wargaming, or I thought gradually I'd get into films and do special effects and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never had to. I don't think I ever turned anything away. Nothing's ever really flummoxed me. And yeah, I think there were some key decisions. I mean, I worked out. You've got to work out an hourly rate that's realistic, and you've got to stick to that because you do get a lot of sucking teeth and saying, "Well, that's far too much." And bespoke terrain is not, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, and you've just got to accept that you're going to lose some, win some, and I think that's probably where my sales training came in. Not that I could sell it, but that I wasn't depressed when people said no, and that all that sort of thing helped.
So it's one of those things of you turn around and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost, and and when somebody said, don't know about that, it's that thing you turn around and say,
fair enough. Yeah, I mean, there was still loads of stuff that some people would just like, I don't know, there was things that I just couldn't resist, and I'd do it at any price. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I can't think off the top of my head, but there was certain things you just think, whatever price, I'll do it, because I'm not doing it. I am doing it for the money, obviously, but I love doing it. I just I couldn't have done it for 14 years full time and not be loving it. So I just love making stuff. So I, particularly early on, I would do stuff for, sometimes for any price, just because I wanted to do it, and it's just sort of worked out, really. Yeah, I think that's it's worked out.
Okay, so obviously you've been making terrain for 14 years. So what sort of clientele have you had? I mean, obviously most people, or a lot of people, will have heard of you from doing the Agincourt diorama with the Perrys. What, when you think like, all this diorama terrain, I mean, is it all private? Is it private people that you do it for? Is it museums? What tends to be your average client, or do you not have an average client?
It's mainly private guys. I split pretty much down the middle with wargamers and toy soldier collectors. Don't know if a lot of my stuff I make is now 54mm 1/30th scale.
I was going to say you do an awful lot of for want of a better phrase, big stuff.
Yeah, and well, again, that sort of happened accidentally because Mark and I set the business up. Mark wasn't really a model maker, so we very early on looked for other things that he could get involved with. So we started to sell, import stuff from the States and things like that. And one small range of buildings we took on was from John Jenkins. He made 7 or 8 Japanese buildings. Did you ever come across them, Neil? Because I know you like your Japanese stuff. 28mm resin things.
I must admit, I've not come across those. No.
Well, again, very early on, so probably 12 years ago, we started importing those from. He's a Welshman, but he's based in Hong Kong. Very talented guy, and we started selling those. And he started producing some 54mm pre-painted French Indian War things, and it's for collectors, so it's like William Britton. So they'll come boxed, set of 3, set of 2, set of 1, pre-painted, limited edition, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds a figure. And he kept bugging us to say, look, why not try these? They'll and see how they go. And I thought, well, Mark and I both thought that the toy soldier collector and the wargaming hobby is all the same sort of thing, and I didn't know anything about the toy soldier stuff. And I thought, well, it just doesn't exist here. But we thought to sort of keep him happy, so we could keep importing the Japanese buildings, we'd give it a go.
Yeah.
So we got a few sets in and found out that there was a London Toy Soldier show down in London, and we got a 6-foot stand. It was like £20, so it was worth a go.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a little bit of a Fort William Henry wall just to show off the figures, and a base of a river base, something like that, just to put them on. And it was amazing. The guys just loved the figures, and they loved the terrain, and we've never looked back, really. We started to import all his 54mm figures. We then took on First Legion. If you have a look at those, I mean, they are just stunning. I mean, but you get a price tag to match. We try collector showcase, things like that, and over about 5 or 6 years, we built that into quite a nice little business. And all the time, my dioramas would back the sales up, and guys would then start. Toy soldier collectors would start to know me for building dioramas. The big difference with with toy soldier guys is that they display them. They don't play. They'll generally buy the figures, set them up on shelves or in cabinets. They might photograph them and then, but that's it. So building terrain for them is very different to wargame terrain. It's not so. It doesn't have to be so durable. It can be more delicate, and it's all 1/30th scale. And so that's turned into.
Does the scale cause much difference in how you build things?
A bit. You can put more detail on. I would say the biggest difference between the two is how they use it. The difference in use. So you can add more delicate detail. So on the bigger scale, but only because they're more delicate. They'll put them in on a shelf and leave it. You don't have to. You're not carting it to the show to the club every week. So I don't think the size really matters. Makes a much difference. You can, a millimetre out on a 54mm building is not obvious. As obvious as a 28mm building or a 15mm building, or a millimetre out on a 6mm building is like it's just enormous, isn't it? So you've got perhaps a little bit more leeway on that sort of thing. But otherwise, no, I don't think so. No. But I really enjoy doing the 54mm stuff. I even tried wargaming in it, but the terrain was just too big, so I couldn't store it anywhere. So I just sold it on. So that's how I got into the 54mm stuff. Now we've stopped importing the soldiers now, but I'm still still very involved in that hobby.
Okay, so again, you've been terrain building for a while. I mean,
yes.
How has the types of material that you use, how has that changed? I mean, when you first started making boards, when you first started, I mean, do you make them completely differently now? Is it still roughly the same stuff? And what has revolutionised the way you make terrain?
Terrain boards are very similar. I think very early on we did try to use 50mm thick blue foam and cut it on a bandsaw, stuff like that. We found that it wasn't reliable because it would sometimes burn and melt and it would stick to the machine and things like that. So in the end, we came up with an MDF box, so a 50mm deep MDF surround, hardboard base, and then you fill it with polystyrene and then build up from there. And that stayed pretty constant. The grout and things have slightly changed. My colour scheme slightly changed. Probably the flock has just developed a little bit. But my boards are pretty much as they were then, really. Buildings wise, I've been making buildings out of foam board for 25 years. I remember, again, I was at Games Workshop when they were before dead early on, and I remember seeing Dave Andrews, and he told me he made his buildings out of foam board, and I experimented with those, and I've never looked back because I work in my loft.
Yeah.
So I don't have power tools or anything like that. So I can't use MDF. I can't power tool MDF and things like that. So foam board is dead easy to cut with a scalpel. It's durable. It's light. It's tough. All of that. As long as you brace it properly, it's fine. And I use 5mm and 10mm thick, and so I've always used that, and I don't think I can't see myself changing with that, really. I think probably the biggest difference is the windows and details. I now get them pretty much all laser cut, but early on I used to make a master and get them cast, and but now I've got laser cutting friends who can sort that out for me. Just experiment with 3D stuff now. Again, a friend of mine's doing some Japanese tile sheets for me. So I think that sort of thing will continually evolve. But my basic style hasn't really changed. I'm pretty loyal to the colour schemes I use. I guess when you find something that you like and you stick with, and nothing's really, I use raw umber a lot. I use yellow ochre a lot. I use I think if I could only choose 2 paints, it would be yellow ochre and raw umber. I use other stuff, but those are my two go-tos.
And I mean, I'm assuming. Okay, what sort of paint do you use?
Well, for terrain, I use Dulux. Dave knows all about this.
Dulux? Dulux? Good grief, the expensive stuff.
The ready mix, the stuff that you get mixed properly. Yeah, I've tried cheap stuff, and it just doesn't cover it properly, or you try and water it down, and it just goes all just useless. It doesn't last for as long as Dulux does, because I mean, I'll get a 2.5 litre tub, and it'll last me for ages. And Dulux, it might go a bit smelly, but it doesn't go useless. You can use it right down to the bottom of the tin. I remember I got some other cheapy orange stuff, and you got to stir it for 5 minutes every time before you use it now. But Dulux, open the can and you're away, and you can water it down. You can use it on non-dilute. It's great. And of course, you can pretty much, if someone says, "Can you match my Vallejo, I don't know, Iraqi sand?" I can take a swatch of it and get it mixed to somewhat pretty close. So yeah, I don't use anything else now other than Dulux. Or I use acrylic as well for washes, which are the System 5 or System 7 De La Rowney acrylics. And again, they're pretty nice. They're pretty good acrylics, but you can water those down. They keep the pigment quite nicely. Again, raw umber I use with that. Black, burnt umber, buff titanium. Those are my 4 I use a lot on with that. So yeah, that's it really.
Can I ask a question about flocks? I think so.
You can.
I do like me flock mixes. I tend to get all different sort of styles of sort of flocks and foams.
Yeah,
like the wooden scenic stuff, and I used to get some wonderful flock off Keith Warren from Realistic Model Services.
Yeah. Debbie of War now have taken those on.
Have they? Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So you can still get all that. Yeah.
Oh, cool. But I always make mixtures, and I wonder what you do. Do you have like a batch of mixed flocks that you use, or do you mix your own, or do you just buy specific types for different, for specific periods, shall we say?
Well, my go-to is I use 3 stages. Woodland Scenics. It's a ground foam. I think it's a green. They just call it a green mix or something like that. And that's a. No, sorry, apologies. I start with a weed, again with Woodland Scenics, with a weed. It's called weed. It's a dark green foam, ground foam. So I'll lay that first to give it a nice dark coat, and then a layer of the green, and which is a couple of shades lighter, and then I finish off with a Nock Summer flock, which gives it the highlight really. And so I don't mix my own at all, partly because I'm not organised enough to say, right, it's 3 scoops of this, 2 scoops of that, 1 scoop of that. So I wouldn't keep it consistent. With all my painting, and I have a pot of water, a pot of paint, and I'll dab water, paint, and splash it on. So although I use the same colours, the thicknesses can vary. And it's the same with flock. If I was mixing stuff, it would be hopeless. So I keep to off the shelf stuff, but I'll layer it like I did there. And I use Keith Warren stuff. I used all his stuff on the Agincourt thing, on the Agincourt diorama, because he could do special mixes for you. So I tend to, I suppose if I do need something specially mixing, I'll see if I can get someone to do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite. I know what I'm good at, and I'll find other people to do stuff that, and they're usually willing to do it. So that's fine.
So how do you seal the foams between? Because you said you have three layers.
Yeah.
How do you seal them between? Do you just use like a watered down PVA?
Yeah. So I'll paint PVA first, slightly watered down, sprinkle the dark green on, and then the mid green on, and then I'll spray it heavily to it's not running, but it's with a watered down PVA. Just spray it out with as heavily as I can really, And then...
Sorry, just spray it. So what do you use to spray?
Yeah, I buy just hand spray things from B&Q. They're £1 a spray.
Right.
Just a hand, you could really use your stuff that you get, your kitchen cleaners and stuff like that. I'm sure you could clean those out and use those, but I just get these things, and you can adjust the nozzle a bit.
It's the sort of thing you buy for using the greenhouse and stuff, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
I go through loads of them because although I try my best to keep them clean and stuff like that, the PVA just clogs them up eventually. So I lose my patience, and I've got loads of them. But so I'll just fill it with I couldn't say whether it's 5-1 or 10-1. It's what I do at the time. So I have a jar of pre-watered down PVA that I just dilute every now and then, pour some in, top it up with water, and just test it until it comes out looking quite milky, and spray it on quite a fine mist the best I can, and then so that's one layer, and then I'll highlight with the Nock summer mix, and then I'll spray it again. If I'm adding extra stuff like Woodland Scenics do a flower mix, summer flower mix, so that's some foam that I can sprinkle on as well to give it a bit of colour, or if I want more texture I can add coarser foam, again Woodland Scenic stuff, and again just spray it all. They also do the clump foliage, that you pull apart. I'll stick that on with PVA, and then I'll get a pipette of watered down PVA and just squeeze it into that, and until it squeezes out, and then when that dries rock hard. So it's watered down PVA that I use to seal everything like that.
And you use flock as opposed to static grass?
Again, it varies. The Nock summer mix is a static grass actually, but I don't use it as a static grass. It doesn't stand up.
Right.
I just really put that on for colour and a little bit of different texture. I do tend to I can use static grass more on 54mm dioramas because, again, it's the delicate nature of it. Because I don't know. Do you, if you put static grass down and it stands up, and then you seal it with PVA, what happens? I find it drops down. Then it
lies down again. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't seal it, is it durable enough for me to hand it on?
I use either unscented hairspray or whatever clear figure varnish is going cheap at the moment, which seems to work.
That seals it and keeps it stood up.
Seems to.
Okay. Yeah, I might try that.
I tend to work with fairly short grass, but you can still definitely feel the texture and the stand-uppiness. Mm-hmm. Is that a word?
Stand-uppiness? No, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I mean, I think that the longest static grass I've come up with was did they do 6mm? And then to make it longer, you sort of I must have sprayed it with PVA, and then you sprinkle it again, and it sticks on top of it. So you get like a 6mm and a 4mm to get 10mm. But that was for a guy who was going to photograph his figures, and he just wanted it for pretty much a one shot event.
I think Warworld do longer than 6mm now.
Right.
And I know I've got some Nock 12mm somewhere.
Okay, so maybe
I've never managed to make stand up. I must.
No, yeah. Did you stand up with it? Do you use one of the those applicators? That you.
To be honest, no. I sort of roll it in pinches through my fingers, or run it through a sieve.
Okay. What? Not electrically charged, or anything
and then turn the board upside down and tap, and let gravity do a bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because myself and Mr. Luff have had long discussions about static grass application, have we not, Mr. Luff?
We have.
And what have you come to? What conclusions have you come up with?
Stick it on.
Yeah.
There's all these things about on YouTube and stuff that you got to use it. It's got to be staticized. You got to make sure it all stands up properly and all the rest of it. And there was one video that showed us how to get it all standing up perfectly, and then the video said, and this looks too perfect. So what you do next is you get a flat-headed screwdriver and you go around the area that you've just staticked and push everything down again. And I was like, "Cool, talk about creating work for yourself."
Absolutely, yeah. So what? You just stick it on, and it just some of it sticks up, some of it doesn't, and it just
yeah. That's all we do, isn't it? Yeah. I actually just chuck it at it. So I'll hold a figure and I actually throw it at it, and that seems to the static and the throwing action gets enough static through it.
By far and away, I found the best thing for making it look good is something I picked up off good old Mal the Terrain Tutor.
Yeah.
Which was the whole concept of basically doing a Keith what's his face 3-color shading, but with static grass.
Well, he uses Jarvis, doesn't he? They use
he does. But basically, all the flat, open, exposed areas, you use the lighter shades. Everything else, you use a middle shade, and anything that's sort of tucked away in the dark corners, you use a darker shade, and it does actually work.
Well, that's sort of what I use with. I suppose it's the same idea. I use the weed, which is the dark green, the green, which is the mid green, and then the knock, which is the light green. So it's the same sort of idea, really. And it does work. It does work.
Yeah, this is why I sort of mix the various foams with flocks as well, because it does help. It breaks up the flock, because sometimes flock can really clump unless you put it through a tea strainer. So I found by mixing it with other textures, it breaks it up and it gives you a sort of, it doesn't give you what's going to look like a bowling lawn. Yeah. Most of the time, you don't fight in bowling lawns. So
how do you apply foam and static grass all in the same?
Yeah, I basically get a
how do you do it then? So what?
I literally just get a little plastic pot, just get a selection of different foam, static grasses, some of the flower mixes, the sort of yellowy stuff, and basically just make about a pot full, put a lid on it, shake it up for about 10 minutes so it really mixes it together, and then water down PVA, put that in the pass I want, and then just chuck this stuff at it, and then turn the model over and just tap it off. It just breaks up. I don't know if it would be any good for terrain boards, because the terrain boards you really want to add in darker areas, but for basing models, I find it's great, and it just builds over the base. Yeah. And the other thing I do is for the basic sort of sand mixes, I mix good old fashioned sharp sand, which I bought a bag in 1984, and I think I've still got most of it, with dried tea leaves. So,
right.
Just basically dry out a couple of days worth of tea bags in the conservatory for a week, take them out and mix that with the sand, and it's just textures. I find it just gives you different textures.
Yeah, I use chinchilla sand, which I don't think is sand actually. I think it's bits, very
sand
small
of sand, you say?
Clay, isn't it? Chinchilla sand.
I was going to say chinchilla sand, except it isn't sand.
Well, I don't think it is. I guess it's built. I guess it's designed to be absorbent, isn't it?
So sorry, I was thinking something completely different.
We have a local pets RU or whatever it is. So chinchilla sand, cat litter, and then anything else I find really. So yeah, I find with large areas, so large terrain boards, I tend to. I use the shading idea with hills and things, but it's got to be quite robust. I'll do the more delicate stuff with a lot of the textures of foam and static grass at the bases of maybe steep hills or something like that, where you're not going to be rubbing it so much, and you're not going to be putting so many figures around. So maybe at the base of cliffs or things like that, where they sort of protect the more delicate bits. But your general terrain board, it'll just be that 3-color mix really, unless somebody specifies a different color, which does happen from time to time. And I still get people asking for glue sand and then painted sand and then just highlighted, and that I enjoy doing that, because that sort of thing's been done for yonks, hasn't it? So I get all sorts of requests really for different finishes.
So do you make your own trees?
I can, but I don't usually, because there are some amazing tree makers out there. You can spend whatever you like on them, from Last Valley up to getting handmade trees that £100 each. My go-to trees are probably the Model Tree Shop. Is it the Model Tree Shop?
Yes, Model Tree Shop. Yes,
they have a great selection of trees from, the bog brush type through the wire etched brass to plastics sprues to all sorts of things. So they're a great one. For my 1/30th scale, I use a 1/30th guy called JG Miniatures in Sheffield, and he makes lovely trees, but they're not really wargamey trees. They're too delicate. They're definitely diorama trees. I used Keith Warren for his trees. His trees are on the Agincourt diorama, and now say Debris of War, they're making his trees, so they're really good. So mainly, but I can make my own trees, but again, with all that around, I think the trees I do make are perhaps if I'm making bocage, and so I need those trees that sometimes make a tunnel really.
Yeah.
And so they're very specific shape. Or I've made fantasy trees with a face in them, or a gnarled boot hill tree with a hanging noose and things like that, where something very specific has to be made. But otherwise, now I'll buy them.
As we're discussing around this, what I'll do, we asked our listeners if they had any questions for you, and we've got a few questions. And as we're chatting around terrain, I'll bring in some questions. Now, there's a couple of these that we may or may not have answered. So, first off, Colin Peake. Hello, Colin. He asked, he was really interested to know what you use as your base material for mounting terrain. So, is that this thing of you effectively make MDF squares with polystyrene in the middle? Is that what you're still doing?
Well, for my terrain boards, yes.
Yeah.
But if I'm making loose terrain, I still get nervous about it. Because of the warping issue.
Yeah.
I try to design loose bits with something that's going to stop them warping. So maybe if it's a field, then I might make a wall around it or something like that, or try and design out the warp. But if I can't, then I'll use maybe up to 6mm MDF, chamfered.
Mm-hmm.
But I generally I'm not asked for a lot of loose scatter terrain because it's not really. I don't know. I think sort of the Last Valley and the Terrain guys and they're better at that sort of thing. It's I think more of a you've got to get into a routine and do lots of them. So I generally don't. I'm not asked to do them. For roads and things, I'll buy the latex rubber roads if they want to be laid on, and I've just started buying the Total Battle Miniatures ones. They're great. I mean, they do wide ones, narrow roads, bends, tight bends, T-junctions, crossroads. So they're very good. So, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of those. I've just picked them up because they use this sort of flexible resin. It's not rubber.
Mm.
It's very good stuff.
It is, isn't it? And I was going to spray them, but he said no, don't spray them.
No.
You got to. And so the good old Dulux paint works a wonder on them.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So no, I'll use them again. I think I might get some for myself on those.
Peter Riley asks, and again we discussed this a little bit. He said, "What are your thoughts on MDF as a terrain building material?"
I like it in 1 and 2 mil, and I like it. I use it generally as a material that I'll get laser cut, windows and things like that.
Yeah.
I won't use it for making the buildings because of the tool issue that I have.
Yeah.
And I love foam board. I have a large supply of 2mm MDF that I do use for quite a few things. Actually, I used MDF on roofs and things like that, for the base of a roof before I tile it or stuff like that. I might use it if they want a base on a building, just a little chamfered bit of texture around the edge. I'll use a 2mm MDF on that. But generally, I won't use MDF very much unless it comes as a pre-cut, laser cut window.
Right.
I would say, yeah.
Okay. I know we've on some of our freestanding area terrain pieces we've used 2 and 3mm MDF, and I mean we made a lot of ours about a year ago, and we got them out of the terrain cupboard the other week, and they and we were starting to suffer warping issues, weren't we, Mr. Wolf?
Yeah, it's the first time they've warped now, isn't it? We haven't had even a whiff of warping till the other day.
Did you paint both sides?
No, we didn't.
Well, there you go then.
Well, no, it doesn't really make a lot of odds. That doesn't always, because as soon as you put a thicker surface on one side, that's what pulls it. Really, it does.
Yeah, I found that. I don't think that's I found that to be an unreliable way of. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if I find that it doesn't always work, then I can't use it really.
It comes from the imbalancing of the core material, because we used to have this problem when I used to work in the furniture trade when we used to do veneering. So when you veneered on one side, the face veneer, you always put a cheaper veneer on the back side of the MDF. Reason being was to balance it and actually stop it from warping. So this is when you made wardrobes or whatever you were making. So it's actually the physical pull of whatever you're putting on the surface actually pulls it out of shape. It does.
Right. I mean, I found that sometimes if I'm doing a large bit of, I don't know, maybe rendering on one side, if I do it on both sides, it keeps it. It doesn't drag it out. It will. As long as you're consistent both sides, I suppose.
That's right. It's balanced then.
Yeah. But no, I don't. I'm always very nervous about scatter terrain and the warping issue with stuff, because really, I expect when it goes off to somebody, it should be playable for years and years, really.
Yeah.
And I'm always a bit. I don't know whether it will be. So I try and stay away from the scatter terrain as much as I can, really.
Right. Okay. Now, since you're such a fan of foam board,
yes,
the next question is almost made for you. It's the man from the ministry himself. It's Craig Cartmel. Hello, Craig, and he says or asks, what's the best way to remove paper from one side of foam board?
I have no idea. I don't do it.
Super.
No, I don't do it.
Oh wow, okay. So have you never removed it from one side to do like brickwork and that sort of thing, or do you do that completely differently?
No, I add stuff onto it, and then so with 54mm brickwork, I'll cover it in Das Pronto air dry clay and then carve it. With 28mm, I'll probably use plastic card, stick it on. So no, I don't carve the foam board at all. The foam board I use purely as a foundation for the start of whatever I'm going to build on top. Yeah. So sorry about that.
Okay, no. But you can now answer. So now you can answer a question that with an issue that we came up. Here we go. It's Dave Marshall, the terrain doctor time. Right, because for this for Market Larden, we were I was using gluing, so it had some embossed plastic card.
Yeah,
and we were gluing it onto foam. We were gluing it onto foam board. And what adhesive should you use? Because we were using Loctite impact adhesive. Is that what we were using, Dave?
Impact adhesive? That's a new glue you've invented there.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
It was like a contact adhesive.
Contact adhesive, and
what? Coat both sides and then let it dry and then pop it together.
Yeah, and we had some major issues, didn't we, Dave? We had issues with warping, and didn't you almost it almost melted the plastic?
We didn't have issues, did we? We only had issues in some stage because we didn't follow the instructions, did we? When it said leave it for 10 minutes to allow it to evaporate off, and we just busily putting it together.
And then did it bubble the plastic card?
Yeah.
I use solvent-free contact adhesive. I started using that because, I guess partly because I've got my head over solvent for years and years. I now can't smell anything vaguely solventy for it to not start my eyes running and going off. So I have to use as much solvent-free stuff as possible. So
okay. So can you recommend some brands to us?
It's EvoStick. Solvent-free impact multi-purpose contact adhesive.
You see, Dave, I wasn't making up impact adhesive.
No, you weren't actually. No.
Well, the stuff that we were wasn't impact, was it?
Well, it was close. All right, so
yeah, and I get it from B&Q or Wilco's or anything like that. So
the DIY stores are available.
Absolutely. But I find that's pretty useful for all sorts of stuff. Short sheet, where you stick in large areas to large areas. It's really good. Yeah, it works really well.
Cool. What? Okay. Right. Well, oh yeah. Okay. Question from Jack Sarge. Hello, Jack. It's okay. Thatch. What's your preferred method? Fake fur, toweling, air dry clay, or something else?
I think air dry clay gives the best look for me. I do use thatch, teddy bear fur, but I don't think I use it for commercial jobs. I just find it looks like teddy bear fur PVA'd really. So I use. I've just done part of Rorke's Drift in 54mm, the storehouse, and the way I did the thatch roof on that, I put a quite a thick base of balsa wood on it to give it the thickness, the depth of a thatch, and then rolled out air dry clay, stuck that on, and then got a wire brush, but not probably a suede, quite a delicate wire brush. It's not like a DIY, where you're scraping paint off.
Is it a sort of like a wire brush, like the sort of thing you use for like grooming pets and that sort of thing?
I suppose so, that sort of thing. So quite, or you could. I think I've done it also with a really stiff paintbrush, almost maybe cut it down to, so the bristles are stiff, and then I stipple it, and I brush it while it's still wet, and just keep going with it. And the more you work it, the softer it gets, and the easier it is to keep the to put the texture in. And I just keep going at it. So on the edges, where the overhangs, I'll push the brush in, so you get that stipple effect. On the top, I'll brush it down, stipple it a little bit, brush it, stipple it again, and just keep working it until you like you get the texture you like. So yeah, I think that's my preferred way of doing it. And then I paint it again. However, yellow ochre, raw umber wash, maybe a bit of a black wash to if I want it really aged, and then dry brush it up again. And that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Right. Martin Armstrong asks, are you a fan of cloth mats? Because obviously they seem to be all the rage at the moment.
I am actually in the right place. I think a beautifully sculpted terrain board you can't beat for the look, but it's really, unless you have storage, it's really impractical. So a 6x4 mat, just roll it up and roll it out again. No, I'm fine with those. I've got one.
What? Just the one?
Well, I've just got the one green mat, but I've got 4 Imperial Assault mats. But that's another story. You got all the ready-made Imperial. That sounds like a conversation that needs to be had, considering the audience you've got, mate. yeah. But yeah, so no, my son's just got married and properly moved out of the house, so his room is turned into partly wargaming room, and I've got a 6x4 table there. But I would love to make my own terrain boards, but I just can't. There's nowhere to put them. So yeah, horses for courses, really. No, I'm a big fan of those. No issue with that at all.
Cool. And I think the last question in the lot that we've got is, and again, it'll be something we've intimated at. John Steed asks, how do you feel 3D printing will impact on terrain building? I
think it will allow you to, for me, it will allow me to get architectural detail and things like that from a lot easier than I could before.
Yeah.
I think it's the best results are doing the best things in various parts. So I think laser cutting still has a very big part to play. 3D printing. I mean, as I say, I'm getting some Japanese tiles 3D printed for a 54mm samurai gate and outer wall, and because of that, and I've gone down that route because the key to the Japanese castle, isn't it? It's the roof. That's the ornate thing. That's the really eye-catching stuff. I think the walls are generally fairly straightforward things, but you get the roof right, and that will be the wow. So that's my first foray down into 3D stuff. But I think whether 3D printing will be able to do, make buildings, I think 3D printing will be able to do that, but that's just another form of off-the-shelfness, really. If you want bespoke stuff, it's going to be handmade, I think. So I think it's going to be useful to improve your buildings, but I still see, even in the long run, the handmade bespoke stuff will still be a valuable service. But I would say that, wouldn't I?
Yeah, I think.
Don't you, Mike? You're a big fan.
Well, I've done some actual 3D printed buildings. One of the things I find is that if you're actually printing the whole building, because the way the things work, you always get a little bit of curl up at the corners.
Right.
And I think, to be honest, the way forward for, if you like, hybrid stuff is to use something like MDF for the shell, and then you can 3D print things like window frames and shutters the kind of things that quite a lot of folks do resin cast. If you look at, is it Charlie Foxtrot who did that? Who've done some really nice stuff recently, where it's basically a resin MDF shell, and they've just added little bits of resin cast detail where it's obvious that MDF wouldn't cut the mustard. And I'm sure you could do the same thing with 3D printing.
I'm sure you can. Yeah. I mean, I thought when what Jeff is at Ham and Jam.
Yeah. He's got a 3D printer, so he uses that to print things like the shutters and windowsills and little details, and then the MDF shell, which is then sort of clad around and so forth.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I've sort of made the decision that I won't actually go down the route of getting a 3D printer and stuff like that. I'll get other people to work that out for me. I'm just not, I know again, it goes back to, I know what I do. And I mean, I've got a couple of guys who laser cut for me. I've got, a couple of guys who can 3D print for me. And I want to concentrate on what I like to do, and get other people to do what they're good at. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be it's the hybrid. What word did you use, Mike? A bit of this, bit of that. It's
hybrid.
Is it hybrid? Was I right? Hybrid. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that'll be that's the way to go.
I got one final question for you, Dave.
Yeah. Right.
It's when you work in the attic.
Yeah.
How did you make that bloody massive Agincourt diorama in your attic, mate?
Well, I had a unit. Yes, my loft hatch is 4 foot by 2 foot, so yes, I'd have had an issue with that.
Yeah,
yeah. But I mean, you should see me getting, as long as it's 4 by 2, as long as one dimension is less than that, I can get it down the loft hatch. So I've been pretty close once or twice, not being able to get stuff down that I've made, but and it's a loft ladder, so it's not a stairway. So yeah, so on the big ones, my wife's at the top balancing it. I'm on the ladder with it on my shoulder, stepping, and then my son's at the bottom ready to catch me in case it all goes wrong. So far, so good. But one day it'll anyway. Yeah. It's quite a physical job, this model making.
Talking about that Agincourt diorama, because that was just phenomenal. And I know the boys have all seen it. I haven't, unfortunately. I'm guessing those sort of jobs don't come around very often, do they? But how long did it actually take you from start to finish? Was it sort of 2 years, I heard? It
was something like that. I mean, it was. I was introduced to the Agincourt guy in the March of whenever. He came. That was at a London Toy Soldier show, because he was a collector of soldiers. And then in April, he came to Salute, and I introduced him to the Perrys and got things going there. And then during the summer, we did all the tendering and all that official bit, which was really, really alien and tough. I've never done that before, so that was sort of proper work really. And then I was fortunate enough to win it, and I think we heard that into January, and then we delivered the following October. Would that be right? So about 2.5 years from introduction to delivery. But there wasn't 2.5 years of work. I mean, the biggest thing was the painting. There's 4,500 figures on the board. So, and 2 guys painted them all. Oh, they're going to kill me. Andy Isherwood in Nottingham. They did 500 figures a month for me, which was for sort of like 9 months, which was pretty good of them.
That is good go, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't think they want to see another French man at arms ever, but that's another story.
Yeah. Were you also involved in the Glipley diorama, the Peter Jackson one?
No, nothing to do with that. No, that was all. That was
Perry's.
the Perrys and Wetter Studio. Is it Wetter?
Yeah, Wetter.
Yeah. No, that was unfortunate. I'd like to have been involved in that, but no. That Agincourt's the only really biggie that I've been involved with. So if anybody else knows anybody who might want another biggie, then I'll up for it. But you haven't been to see it yet. I suppose
No, I haven't been able to get over to Leeds.
Yeah.
I do want to go and see it. It's just
and it's right next to the Waterloo one.
Yeah, I have to admit, much as I love the Agincourt one, there's so much history in the Waterloo one.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And the whole Sidon's letters and stuff that go with it is just.
No, I mean,
it will be very, very interesting to see if come another however long it will be when your Agincourt diorama has been around for as long as that Waterloo has, how well it holds up actually.
I know that will be interesting. Yeah, yes, it will be.
I mean, do you have? I mean, that's an interesting question. How well does the stuff you build keep? Is it a problem?
It doesn't seem to be. I mean, I've had guys who were customers all those years ago, and it's sort of held. They've held up pretty well. I mean, they take bashes and things like that, but because I think with the terrain boards being MDF surrounds with a hardboard base, you're going to bash them. You're going to knock little bits out of the top, or take a bit of texture off, or rub the flock off maybe in places. But you're not going to. You aren't like the old TSS boards. I mean they were just polished out. You take great chunks out of those. So they're you've got to look after them. I mean you a retouch here and there, but no, they do seem to last. They don't seem to last.
I guess you're in luck with the Agincourt boards that you've got some professional grade conservers on the premises.
Well, yes, and I mean, and it's there's no natural light, so there's not going to there's no sun effect of fading. I mean, it's beautifully encased, isn't it? In that, I mean, they did a brilliant job on it. So it's being as well looked after as it can be. So. I don't know what I would think would go first on that. I suppose I mean there were 4 boards 2 meters by 1 meter, so there were 3 joins. Maybe over time, how I filled those might crack. That might happen, but only time will tell. I mean, I've only got 14 years of experience with doing it commercially, so I can't go back further than that really. Although so. I don't know. We'll see. Although in 20 years' time, I'm not. Oh no. 30 years' time, maybe I'm not going to be bothered anyway. So yeah.
One final selfish question, because again, it's something that came up in our recent building terrain experiences. How do you deal with tolerances with using the same material in different scales? Because one thing we were struggling with a little bit was the fact of, obviously, when you're making a phone call building in 28mm. There's a lot you can get away with which as soon as you put it down to 15mm, you're struggling a bit more. How do you deal with that, or is it simply just a case of it's experience?
I guess it's experience, but I mean that's not much of a help. I think I must admit I don't like making buildings smaller than 20mm, partly because of because I do so much like working in the foam board,
right?
Getting really small an issue. I also think, as far as for the commercial side of it, is that there's as much work in a 15mm building. Well, not as much, but there's sort of 80% of much work in a 15mm building as potentially as a 28. But you can't charge it, or if you charge a realistic amount, it just doesn't look value for money. So, but anyway, that's another issue. So I maybe with a 15mm building, I might go down to MDF and then stick windows on, because normally I cut windows in and do that. But I generally don't like making 15mm buildings. I would if someone came to me with a 15mm thing. If it was a landscape, then I would recommend you get off the shelf 15mm stuff. For me, that's just my preference. Yeah. So I can't be much help there really.
You hear that, Dave? We should have bought it.
But if you like, but the general rules, if you like it, do it. And I mean, if you enjoy doing it, do it, because. I'm fortunate I made a living out of it, but I love it. I love the whole process of making stuff, and it's relaxing, it's rewarding, it's creative, it's everything. And whatever, just go and try it and do it and enjoy it, and just don't worry if you cock it up or it's terrain. So what the hell? I think. Don't think about it too much. Just splash it on and see what happens. That's my rule. Because you've been asking me all these questions, and it's interesting. I don't very often sit and think about it. I think I've realised as I'm trying to answer these questions, think, well, I just sort of do it, and it's and that's my best advice really.
So
just do it.
Something that just sprung to mind. What's your view on using food stuff as a building material?
What? Say that again.
What's your view on using foodstuffs as building material?
Food.
Have you seen? Sorry,
like apples or banana? What do you mean?
Are we talking spaghetti now?
We are talking spaghetti.
We're talking using fine pasta for snake rail fencing in 6mm.
Using pasta to represent logs and stuff in 6mm. Have you used it? Ever tried it?
No. Actually,
it's great. Don't get it wet.
Yeah. Yes, it's not waterproof, is it? No. Again, 6mm. Not really a 6mm bit of spaghetti in scale is probably 18 inches thick, isn't it? In scale, do you reckon?
Possibly. Yeah. So that just sprung to mind because
I would use brush bristles. Try that. Maybe they're thinner, and they're water.
Well, Dave, thank you. It's been great to have you on and chat about all sorts of different bits and pieces.
That's all right.
It's been great fun. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have.
Yeah, I've had a good time. Yeah. So it's interesting being asked the questions that you suddenly realise that I make this up as I go along, really. But yes, I've enjoyed it. Yes, it's been great. Thank you very much.
Cool. Now, obviously, the one thing we haven't covered is that should anybody wish to engage your services,
yes,
and find out more about you,
yes,
where can they find you?
Well, I do have a website, but I haven't touched it for quite a long time. So please just treat that as contact details, and there's a little bit of a gallery. But I think it starts off with Welcome to 2015, so it is a bit out of date.
We did notice.
Yeah. I am aware of it, but I've got a waiting list. I've got a work schedule that probably is a year's worth if I stretched it out. So it's nice to know that I've got that as a backup to really push my website if things get a bit quieter. So that's TMTerrain.com. I have a Facebook page which I try and post a couple of times a week on with current stuff, and I find that is I like doing that more because it's very instantaneous and just takes me 5 minutes to do.
Yeah, I think the last thing I saw on that you just taken some medieval housing that you just done outside of. Was that the last thing you were looking at?
Yes, I think so. That was the last. I think I've done. My last post was my son's wedding. Yeah, so that ignore that.
Yes,
one.
Sorry, yes, was that as well. Yes, I was forgetting about that. Yeah.
And then what was? I don't think I've posted anything since. No, so I'm due one tomorrow. So I'll post. I'm doing actually it's something for a guy who's doing a Chain of Command 28mm, and he's doing one of these mini campaigns.
Yes.
The first game, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the first table is pretty much full of a cornfield, 6x4.
Camp Creek One Look.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Right.
There's only the one scenario with that flipping cornfield.
So I'm making the terrain to fit. Is there 2 or 3 tables?
Five in total, I think.
5, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm doing. I've got a farm, and that's from Charlie Foxtrot, and I'm cladding it and tarting that up a bit. But I'm impressed with those, and then and roads and stuff like that. So I'll try and post on progress on that tomorrow.
Contact details on the website. Otherwise, check you out on Facebook. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I don't go to. You'll see me at shows, but I don't trade at wargaming shows because bespoke terrain doesn't really look its best in bits on a stand. It looks best displayed on a game. So, I mean, not this salute, but the salute before. It was like, that was great for me because I had, I won best in show, second best in show, and all sorts of stuff. And those are the best. Those are the best marketing places for me. Did you go not last year, the year before?
Yeah.
To salute. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the English Civil War game that did very well. And
that was yours, was it? Oh wow.
Well, it was my terrain.
Yes.
But it was a customer who obviously commissioned me to do it, and then there was a 40mm, was it Spanish Peninsula with a monastery on the hill?
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was my terrain.
That was awesome.
So that I come into my that's the best place that's the best way to see my stuff in action really, rather than on a stand. So
right,
yeah, okay.
Cool, brilliant.
Well,
David, it's been fantastic to have you on. Thank you so much.
A pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Glad that we finally caught up.
Yes.
And so all the very best with the business in the future.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for sharing some of your trade secrets with us. We really enjoyed it.
Anytime. All right, Neil. Cheers.
Cool. Thanks, good. Thank you.
Right. Bye, guys.
We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, would you like to support us? There's a couple of ways of doing so. You can become a patron of the show by supporting us on our Patreon page. There you can give regularly every time we produce a show. Alternatively, you may want to give a one-off donation, and you can do that by using PayPal. For more details on both these options, please click on the Donate tab on our website www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. So, there we were, an extravaganza on how to make terrain.
He's a bit clever, isn't he?
He is, but also it's amazing. When he talks about, I only really use 3 colours of paint. What was it? Yellow ochre, raw umber, and black. Yeah, mix and match. But as you say, you kind of actually look at, when he starts talking about everything, you kind of go, oh, this is really clever, but it's also,
Really clever.
But yeah. I just found it really inspiring. It was like, oh right, okay. And then you kind of find out that some of the stuff that you're doing isn't too far off the mark. No, it's really cool. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was brilliant. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And obviously, Dave, remember, for future reference, the secret is use a bigger brush.
Use a bigger brush.
Yeah.
I've used a bigger brush before, though.
Practice on roads. Make some more roads, Dave, and practice using a bigger brush.
Yeah.
No, it's not happening. No more roads are being made.
Oh.
We're fresh out of roads.
What's that? Where we're going, we don't need no roads.
Yeah. I told you, do North Africa. There's no roads in North Africa. Well, there's one along the coast. Keep to the side of that, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's just sand dunes and bushes and waddies.
Yeah, we'll just make a sand table for that. Western desert.
Yeah, plumbing every day, mate. You need to reinforce your table if you're doing that.
Need a new vacuum cleaner, possibly.
Yeah. And don't get a cat.
Yeah, that could be interesting, couldn't it?
Where's this new rock formation come from? That wasn't there yesterday.
Ew.
Interactive terrain. Oh dear. What's the phrase?
Some
Moving
natural
swiftly.
hazard.
Natural hazard. And the game becomes pandemic before you know it. Yes. Oh dear.
Biological warfare.
And on that note, I think you'll probably guess it's sufficiently late in the evening that we should be winding this thing up.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So, all that remains to be said is thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed and found that interview informative and useful. I hope you were taking notes. I will certainly be quizzing Mr. Luff about it the next time we start making terrain.
Well, no, it's not going to happen. We ain't ever going to make terrain again. Ever.
It's only going to be 15 mil in Normandy.
It's never going to happen. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna use that 15 mil in Normandy for everything. Medieval.
Yep.
Yeah, Franco-Prussian War, North Africa, everything.
It's particularly virgin part of North Africa, was it?
Yeah. We'll possibly even squeeze it into our French-Indian War if that ever gets off the ground.
You just have to buy some more trees.
We don't need any more trees.
Oh, yes, we do.
We've got 70 trees. We don't need any more trees. He's always.
Oh, yes, we do.
This is the man that said we needed more road. We've never used all the road. This is the man that said we needed more walls. Made about 400 meters of wall, and then went, "Oh, I think I made too much wall." Well, I did say that at the start, Neil, when you started making it, but you were most adamant we needed 400 meters of wall.
Kampfgruppe von Lux scenario 3. That's all I'll say at this point in time.
Yeah. Whatever.
So, what's on next week's episode then, Neil?
What's on next week's episode? Oh, we're back to our patented in-depth reviews, and we're going to be reviewing a new game, or a relatively new game, and that is we are going to be reviewing Runewars because both you and I have played it.
Ooh.
Indeed. So we've got an in-depth review of Runewars coming on next week's show. Chatting all about how it all works, what we think about it. So that's what's coming next week, and I say that's about it. And then and shocking indeed, horror. We might have another week where Mr. Hobbs doesn't buy anything.
Very good chance.
Really?
You never know.
No. Yeah, I need paint. And I'm currently torn between.
You need to paint.
Between Coat d'Arms Triad or Wargames Foundry Triad. I think I might try.
What for your Dwarf Paladin?
No, well, actually, stupidly enough, most of my metallic paint's gone off. Because a lot of my metallic paints are in these bloody stupid Games Workshop hexagon paint pots, which...
What, you mean the ones that they stopped producing 20 years ago? Have they gone off, Neil, after 20 years?
It's terrible. I'd send them back if I was you.
Yeah.
Send them back, complain.
Send them back, right, yeah. They're rubbish.
Sorry, Mr. Shook, but we didn't have, when designing the range, we never envisaged it would take 20 years to put them on the plastic.
Yeah. There's only 70 mils of paint in there. You want to be careful of that really old paint, Neil, because it gets very brittle.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Add to the brittle plastic.
Yeah.
I just want to point out. That I still own paint from the original Citadel Paint Marine space set.
So I got lead in it.
Space Marine paint set, and also from the original. What was it? The Imperial Armour set. It was the one that had things like Imperial Green in it and a few other and stuff like that. It was the Epic paint set. It was the original Epic paint set, and they are still fantastic. They're still perfectly usable. The pigment's fine and everything.
But
yeah, buy some more paint, Neil.
And put it on something.
Yeah.
And on that note, all that remains to be said is I don't know why I'm thanking him, because all he does is come on the show and give me grief. Thank you to the great Guru Luff.
Yep. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and once again, thank you to the wonderful Wizard of Wales, the Welsh Wizard himself. It is Mr. Michael Hobbs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you again for inviting me.
Always a pleasure, mate. And we shall speak to you guys next week. So up until then, take care. Happy gaming. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.